You are listening to the Life in Alignment podcast, and this is your host and coach, Naphtali Anderson. And today's episode is called From Suppression to Empowerment, Men's Journey to Emotional Well-Being. So relax your mind and enjoy the show. Really in honor of Men's Mental Health Month, which is this month, June, I want to talk about this particular topic. I think this is something that is simple, right? It's not necessarily easy. It's powerful, but it's usually overlooked. So being a man, right, we are taught to bury everything. And I've mentioned this multiple times, and I'm sure that you hear it from plenty more people than me, but we bury our emotions for the sake of strength or seeming strong, coming off strong. We bury our emotions for the sake of peace, keeping peace in the home or maybe outside the home, in the office, whatever it may be. We bury our emotions because, well, that's just what a man is taught to do. And we have this tendency to always say things like, I'm fine. I'm okay. I'm good. My personal favorite, I like to say one day at a time, right? And some of us just simply like to say surviving, right? I'm just surviving. All right, I'm familiar with all this because I would say most of these things most of the time. Like I could be dying inside, just seriously just dying, hurting inside, but I will still just say, I'm good. And I get it, right? We don't need to share our emotions, our vulnerabilities with just about everybody. We don't need to be telling everything to everyone, right? And trust me, it's like even now, even with what I do, even with how much I share on social media and stuff like that, there's still only a select few that truly know my deepest emotions, thoughts, and vulnerable moments. Okay, I don't share that with just anybody. I share what can help other people, but I still have my space that I don't share. But the problem is with all this is it's rejection that's destroying our mental health. Okay, so let me explain what I mean by that. Growing up, I started out kind of young shutting down. I started around 7 years old and I was just started shutting everybody out. And honestly, I didn't even open up to my own mother about anything that was going on, right? I had siblings. I didn't open up to them. I just buried everything, all my pain, all my fear, all my anger. I stuffed deep down. The anger, though, for me was the big one. It was because I saw my dad's anger when I was younger. And until they split up, and that's where the whole 7 years old thing started for me, because that was around the time that they divorced, right? That they split up, he moved out, et cetera, et cetera. And that was the main person I had trusted at that time. So if there was anybody before that I opened up to, it was my dad. And when that whole thing went down, I know one of the things for me is I didn't want to be anything like him. So I buried my anger, particularly. Right. And I always pretended that things didn't bother me. I was always good. I was always fine. I was always nonchalant. Right. And at the same time, deep down, I felt like I was like a ticking time bomb, just ready to explode with rage. But yet I always had too much self-control to ever let that happen, which I guess is good. But this went on for like over 20 years. Right. And so at this point, right, 20 years in, 20 years deep, right? Like I had forgiven my dad. I sought out my dad and tried to reconnect with him, release all this anger, release all this unforgiveness that I had towards him because it was limiting me in different areas of my life. And so, just staying on topic, right? I realized something. I realized that in rejecting my anger, in rejecting my pain, I was actually rejecting myself because I can't separate myself. It's me as one. Okay. And I want you to reflect on yourself while I'm speaking about my story right now. And when we reject part of ourselves, we reject the whole of ourselves. And that's the thing that people don't talk about, right? When we bury one emotion, we actually limit access to them all. For example, when I rejected my anger, it became extremely hard to actually feel love, which is one of the reasons why I sought my dad out to kind of deal with that. But in rejecting ourselves, we end up just really inflicting pain on ourselves. Nobody likes rejection. I think most everybody can attest to that. Some people get used to it, right? But nobody actually goes out and seeks rejection. It's painful for almost all of us, but nobody thinks about when we do it to ourselves. How do we feel? Right? This causes us to feel in a steady state of worthlessness, that feeling of being unappreciated, that feeling inadequate. Okay. And everything like it. This is one of the main reasons why we as men keep searching and looking and hunting for that validation from others, that acceptance from others, that just respect and love from others. We do need respect, but at the same time, we're not giving it to ourselves first because we are rejecting ourselves. So even when we do get it, even when we get that validation, even when we get that appreciation, it never really lasts, right? Again, because we're not getting it from the one person that's with us 24/7, ourselves. We end up constantly in this cycle of trying to fix ourselves, trying to measure up, trying to be perfect, trying to be the perfect man, right? And when we do it long enough, in all honesty, it does show up as depression. And for me, I did reach that point. But let's talk about the flip side. What actually happens when we start to accept ourselves like fully, right? How do we even accept those parts that we may think are just ugly or maybe just not man enough, right? How do we accept those parts of us that we're embarrassed about, that we are ashamed of, that we feel is just not good enough, that we feel that other people would reject if they knew it was there? And the biggest thing that we have to do is we have to raise our awareness. That's the first and foremost thing. Looking at my anger and knowing that it was there and knowing that there was a lot of it and just embracing that, embracing what it is, and being the guy that hated that part of myself. I had to be open to accepting it, accepting that it was there, accepting that it might not even leave. But I had to look at my anger and say, okay, how has this been of use for me? Right? This part that I rejected, but my anger came out at times. So how was it useful for me? It gave me that adrenaline rush and sometimes that focus in sports or maybe in the gym. Okay. I use the energy for a positive outcome. And looking at it in that perspective, right, I start to appreciate it. And then I can start to think more creatively of how can I use this energy in the future, right? But also just being honest with myself in my day to day, right? Actually, something the other day happened and I was frustrated. My wife was like, you don't have to be frustrated. And it's like, I understand that, but I am. I am frustrated. I am angry right now. Okay. And I don't take it out on anybody else, but I was expressing the fact that I was just angry. This is just how I feel right now about the situation. And I need to feel that and get to the other side of it. I don't reject it. I don't bury it to try to make everybody feel okay anymore. This is just part of who I am. And this is what I need to do to accept the fullness of who I am. As long as I don't use that anger towards people, right, to cause pain or to cause shame towards somebody else, right, then I'm not using it in a damaging way. And I'm okay with that. But understanding my triggers and allowing myself to feel any and every type of emotion that comes up within me, that's part of that acceptance. And then I can decide what to do with it. And just knowing that this is all part of that human experience. Okay. We are human and we will experience many different types of emotions, and they're all just feedback. So we accept these emotions, we accept these feelings, right? We accept these feelings without judgment. And we just use it as information to learn from, information to learn more about ourselves, about how we work, what makes us tick, or what ticks us off. Right. And the more that we actually learn about ourselves, right, it gets, again, that self-awareness, the more that we learn about ourselves, what triggers us, how do we react to certain things, why we are reacting to certain things in a certain way. The best part about it all is that the more we understand about ourselves, the more we are able to connect and lead others. The more we give ourselves space to feel the good, the bad, the ugly, the pleasant, the joyful, the hurt, everything. And when we can learn how to not judge it and not reject it, then we're able to sit with somebody else as they experience different emotions and actually create a safe space for them. And as leaders, creating that safe space creates more influence. So we're able to lead others, whether that be honestly in the workplace or whether that be at home. But there is no authentic power, right? When we are rejecting who we are, that's an instant power leak. Because when we are, again, when we are rejecting who we are, we're going to look for that acceptance from somebody else. And so we're giving the world, we're giving other people the power to decide whether we are worth enough to be accepted. But we have to give ourselves that acceptance. Okay, there's no inner peace when you hate part of you, right? You think about being in a home with somebody that you hate, there's no peace there. Even if you're not talking, there's tension, there's not peace. So if that hate is inside of you, there's no way there can actually be peace. So the things that you're looking for from the outside world cannot come in and fill that space. You have to give yourself that acceptance. You have to give yourself that love so that you can find that peace, so you can find that power. Okay. These are the things that come with accepting the light and the dark, okay, inside of you and focusing it on an outcome that you desire. Every single emotion that you feel can be used towards a desirable outcome as we learn greater self-awareness, as we learn more maturity, as we learn to take all this information as feedback and not as judgment. We can use all of it just to help us to do more, to be more, or rather to be our best selves, because we are enough just the way we are. We just haven't mastered everything that's going on with us so we can focus it. So, fellas, going to wrap this up, but just do your best to make sure you're not rejecting who you are. The good, the bad, the ugly, the joyful, the beautiful, the shameful. Let all that go. Right? Don't judge it. Don't reject it. Embrace it. Understand it. And when you understand it, that actually gives you the power to shift. Shift the things that are not working for you anymore. Shift the things that are not empowering you anymore. Shift the things that are not making you feel good like your highest self. But you can't shift it until you accept it. Then you understand why it was there in the first place. Because at one point, everything that we do, everything that we feel was helping us at one point to survive, to protect ourselves, etc. But we outgrow a lot of the things. So stop burying, my dudes. Stop burying. Empower yourself. But until next time, this is Naphtali signing off. So good day and be blessed.